The first guy we're going to talk about today is going to be new Denver Broncos running back J.K. Dobbins. J.K. Dobbins, he's down 14 spots, since the move to Denver, which is a little bit surprising given the fact that, he lands in a pretty solid situation for himself. I think many people were hoping that Dobbins was going to go to maybe the Dallas Cowboys, who have a running back room of Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, Jaden Blue, right? Like it would have been a good fit for Dobbins from a fantasy perspective, or possibly go over to the Chicago Bears, right? Who maybe you're looking for a David Montgomery type of player to fit in that Ben Johnson scheme to complement DeAndre Swift. Looks like that might be Roshan Johnson at this point, but J.K. Dobbins finds himself in Denver. And, for what it's worth, he's going as the RB51 at an ADP of 166. He was the RB24 in 2024 from a total points perspective, 18th in points per game. And he had 14.8 points per game in 2024. I think what we saw with Dobbins was a guy who started off pretty strong, right? He started to get a little bit banged up towards the end and ran out of steam maybe a little bit, but he was still very productive. He did miss 4 games last season. I think the thing to keep in mind with Dobbins here is, he was with the Chargers. He had 1,000 all-purpose yards with them, and they opted to draft a running back in the first round and let Dobbins walk. But I think the other telling thing about it is they brought in a more expensive running back in Najee Harris, who has a contract that can earn him up to $9 million in incentives. And so for them to invest in the position in the NFL draft and still bring in a free agent at a more expensive cost, I think it shows that maybe they had some concerns about J.K. Dobbins and what they saw from him down the stretch, where he did lose a little bit of steam. And now he finds himself in Denver. And when you look at Denver's running back situation, you have Audric Estime, you have Jaleel McLaughlin, and then you have the rookie, RJ Harvey. And a lot of people are concerned that maybe this is a statement to RJ Harvey, where maybe Harvey is a guy who we should be concerned about. I don't think so. I think 2 running backs were always going to be the plan for Sean Payton. We've seen it time and time again. When you look at the time with the New Orleans Saints, you had Mark Ingram, you had Alvin Kamara, like those guys complemented each other, right? He's always had that. Latavius Murray as well. And so I never expected it to just be, RJ Harvey getting 80% of the snaps. That's not realistic in today's NFL to begin with. But when you look at Denver's running back room, there is a lot of opportunity here. And, if you look on Twitter and you follow Data Roma, who is a good follow and a friend of the show, he said per fantasy points, Denver was 8th in expected fantasy points last season to the running back position with 398, right? So in my expectations, right, is Dobbins is likely going to see somewhere around a 40%, right? Like share of the workload. And, Harvey's probably somewhere around 50%, and the other running backs maybe share like a small 10%, like a Jaleel and, an Audric Estime, right? I still think Harvey should be productive. Dobbins is going to be likely the guy they use at the goal line, but this is more of an indictment on the other backs in the room. They bring in a nice veteran at his ADP of 166. He's a very solid dart throw. He's going to be involved in the offense. Peyton loves to rotate his backs. I think it's a good place for him to land, though. Again, I would have preferred him to go to Dallas or Chicago. For me, I'm a little surprised he's a faller right now. As I said, down 14 spots since coming to Denver and signing. But I just think ADP probably hasn't adjusted, right? But I've been drafting Dobbins, who's practically free in best ball. And so I don't mind taking chances on him, as a guy that we know is going to be involved in this offense. I don't think he's going to be the RB1, but he's going to be the 1A, 1B. And I think that should be totally fine for RJ Harvey. And Dobbins doesn't have a ton of upside, I would say, because he doesn't, catch the football a ton. But he should still see some targets in that offense because, as we know, Sean Payton offenses, they love to target the running back position. In his career, he's always been around the top 5, when it comes to targets to the running back position. But that's going to do it for J.K. Dobbins.